no. I think
any
in
laws
modern,
on
I
the
think
book.
in modern day America, most discrimination comes from like social norms rather than laws. You asked me to give you some examples of unfair treatment, but I do think that America has come a very long way. And yeah, I think most of the discrimination is now social rather than legal.
Okay, so sure, let's talk about social. What are some ways in which women don't have equal rights socially?
So there has been multitude of studies showing that when women or men have the same qualifications, if there is a woman name on the resume, they are less likely to get picked rather than like a male name.
Well, number one, I feel like that is number one with what's it called when?
But
I forget the name of it when they're like literally selecting women or literally selecting
affirmative action.
With affirmative
action is like a band-aid though. Like
but regardless, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to who can get the job done. When you look at it, right, and I've seen this from first-hand experience, a woman who walks into a job interview where the person tells them this is what you're gonna get paid, are probably gonna walk out of that interview and be like, okay, shit, that's what I'm gonna get paid. A man who walks into that interview, who's qualified, who knows his worth, when they tell him that figure, will say, no, I know what I am worth. And that is a personality characteristic. And at the end of the day, that all factors in to this wage gap disparity that we're talking about.
It's very social, yes. Yeah. And women are trained to be okay. Like if an employer asks you, like, what did you get paid at your last job? Women tend to tell the truth, while men tend to say that they got paid 20% more. But now the wage gap is slowly diminishing and closing. But right now it's still not there yet, but we're like on the way.
Actually, if you adjust, it's pretty much...
Also, women
it's gone. It's gone.
It's
gone. If you account for all variables, if you adjust for all variables,
taking time off for children, for example, when you account for the fact that women are far more like, what woman is willing to work 80 hours per week to be able to get into the position of other men? Men, that is naturally their proclivity. They are based on competition. How can I get ahead of the men next to me? Women don't naturally have that mindset unless they are an exceedingly rare type of woman.
I strongly disagree. But then on top of that, you can make the argument of like, oh, you know, who's pressured more to take care of children and to stay at home? It's always women.
That's why I want to
stay
at home.
That's a natural proclivity.
I don't think you can make that claim. I don't think it's a... If you look... Okay, the argument that's a natural proclivity comes from like, okay, civilization post-agricultural revolution, which has been like the last 10,000 years. And that is even by itself like very tumultuous because we look at, men gained supply or control of the food supply at that time. So you can argue that like when men have control of the food supply, that's how like environmental factors end up creating society. But for the past 100,000 years before that, when we were nomadic societies, things were a lot more egalitarian in nature, which makes sense. We hunted in groups. We took care of children in groups.
It was hunter-gatherers though. There was women who were gathering and men who were hunting.
But doesn't mean one is more valuable than the other.
No. If you look
but it's showing that they have different places, equal but separate. They serve different purposes within society.
But here's the deal. The idea that's like, no, women only gathered and men only hunted, that's not true either. There was great overlap. We can search it right now.
Some overlap, but on the
great overlap
probability, then why is that literally a thing where they said women were gatherers and men were hunters? Were they lying
I want to argue.
Then? What would their motivation be to lie about it? That is what happened.
Because the argument post 1800s, when this was first brought up, was this idea that women are too frail and too weak to hunt, so therefore they must have only been gatherers. But if we look at, let's say, like the recent like bone studies, basically, where we re-examine the corpses and stuff, hey, guess what? A lot more are women than we previously thought, and which makes sense because the way that we hunted wasn't through brute force and strength. It was through literally walking animals until they collapsed out of exhaustion and then reaping the meat out of that.
That's how they did it back in the day. I didn't.
I
mean, sure.
But also modern society, because men aren't like just doing blue collar jobs. I would agree if like we're in a blue collar society, it's just farmers, it's just hunters, it's just construction workers. Like I would agree that men should do these jobs, but when it comes to like white collar jobs, like I think women are just as capable and intelligent and
true. But again, work ethic
that's
comes
really
into
sexist of you to say that men should do the dangerous, dirty, difficult
I think
work.
Men are on average bigger,
but
muscle mass.
Would you say, like, can you name many women who you know in your friend group who are willing to work 80 hours per week on something? I could name several men who I know, who I who are in my circle who do that or who aspire to do that versus most women. We're exhausted
I know
after doing an average 40-hour week. That's why most women are going to OnlyFans, because they can't even work a fucking restaurant job. They can't even work a 40-hour per week job. So they go and they do OnlyFans, and yet we're here fighting about women's natural work ethic and proclivity to be able to achieve the same results as men.
You just assume
like they're not willing
that
to put in the work.
You're assuming that I only do like OnlyFans. And
well, no, I know that you do other
else.
things as well, because you stated it. I'm talking about on the balance of probability for most women. They
I know
see
so
that.
many lazy men as well. Like, you know, the men, like, they're, if you look at the stats of the norm, like, there are way more men who are homeless, who are unemployed, and there are also way more men who are billionaires. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just a lot more men on average who like do everything, but it's not doesn't represent the whole. And same with like women. I think women more have like a normal curve where a lot of people work like maybe average 40 hours, but there are people who work more and there are people who work
and that's
less.
But we're talking on the balance of probability. We're not talking about the
the probability of it is that there are a lot more men
standards, which are, in turn relate to people's natural proclivities, which
I don't
is
think
what
it's
we're talking about
necessarily natural. You might have like an excellent group of friends who are very extremely hardworking, but I know a lot of people who are just unemployed.
$99. Joe Dirt believing men and women are equal is crazy.
Who's Joe Dirt? Yo, Bender the Offender, thank you.
So I do think that there are men who work.
I think it's you, Pixie. I think you're Joe Dirt.
Wait,
okay. I think with your sample
wait.
size of men that you know, I think they're probably really excellent people because you're like an excellent woman as well. But I do think that there are an equal amount of men who work 0 hours per week and just like play video games. Like I do know a lot of unemployed men.
And I think a lot of this is the product of the times, right? But I'm talking about like the natural like inclinations of people on a biological and like psychological level. There are reasons that are
so do you think it's
more
nature or nurture?
No, I think it's nature. Like I believe that nurture has an effect, but I believe at the end of the day, evolutionary psychology plays such a huge factor.
What percentage do you think like nature takes over compared to nurture? Like,
I mean,
if you're raised in a certain environment.
So for me, for example, when you look at my nurture, I should be a failure. I should be this, I should be that, and I'm not. But
you could be an outlier.
I know I'm an exception, exactly. And here's the thing, there are exceptions to the rule, but people try to use their personal experience to be able to denote what is actually going on in society. When to be honest, the world doesn't revolve around you. It's not correct. Just because this is my personal experience doesn't necessarily mean that is how society functions or runs.
Yeah.
And I'm self-aware enough to be able to realize that. Like,
I would say about like your conclusion and assumption with OnlyFans girls too, though. Like,
no, because I do, on a balance of probability, most OnlyFans girls are going to, number one, affect their job prospects, because AI is also being used to determine job candidates for a lot of companies right now, and they are on a 0.01% accuracy and speed going through your history. So that's number one, and that's just going to become more and more prevalent. Number two, a lot of guys aren't going to want to date somebody who has been on OnlyFans. Some men will, but a lot of men, you are limiting your dating prospects.
I feel like I attracted a lot more people who are open-minded once I started.
The type of men you'd want to date though, or the type of men who are into you?
Type of men that I would want to date. But you also look at billionaires. The type of men I would want to date are also attracted to me because they are also more open-minded.
Then why aren't you dating them?
She is dating
I am dating them.
Okay.
She's got you're the single one over here, Amy.
I know. But I'm saying,
like, if you look at billionaires,
though, for most women, generally speaking, a lot of guys, and for you, I can tell you are, like she said, you're an exceptional person. You're obviously very intelligent.
I don't think I'm necessarily that exception to the norm, though. Like, I know a lot of girls who graduated from college, and they have like a high. She graduated from USC, dude. That's a way higher ranking than UCSB. Like, there's so many women.
Yeah. What's your degree?
Art and design.
Oh wow.
I just feel like there's a lot of women who literally they put all of their value into their body being a commodity, and that is their only plan.
I mean, I think most people are aware that the body does decay, but then there's AI. You know, if you're already an influencer, they can just keep on deep faking you. Like, my boyfriend did do a video for Paul McCartney where they defaked him to look like he was 20, and it was a whole music video. Like, it's just like there's so much more to the industry than what is to the eye.
But aren't you guys worried about that as OnlyFans creators, that then your value is going to diminish when someone can literally just make a replica of you? Like, what type of intellectual
but they can make replicas of people who don't do OnlyFans. Like, I know a lot of celebrities where they have nudes out there, but it's just like someone does it.
But this is only becoming prevalent the last couple of years. Imagine
they
in
done
10
it to
years
you?
from now, though.
Hold on. So okay, let's